In Lesson 5-9, you will solve problems involving simple interest. Interest is the amount of money paid or earned for the use of money. For a savings account, you earn interest from the bank. For a credit card or loan, you pay interest to the bank. To solve problems involving simple interest, use the following formula. I equals PRT, where interest equals the principal times the rate times the time. I stands for interest, which is the amount of money that's either paid or earned. So it's the money paid in interest if you are borrowing money, or it's the amount of money earned if you are having it in like a savings account. Principal is the amount of money that's either invested or borrowed. R is the annual interest rate, and it's expressed as a decimal, and T is the time in years. In example 1, it says find the simple interest for $500 invested in a savings account at 3.25% for 3 years. The first thing I would suggest you do for every single one of the problems on your homework, actually I'm not going to suggest it, I'm going to tell you you have to do it, is write down I equals P times R times T. If you write that down, you're going to be more successful at getting the things where they belong. We do not know the interest. We know the interest rate, but we don't know the dollar amount. That might be something to add up here on the formula. The interest, that's going to be a dollar amount. It's not the percent, that's the rate. So we don't know what I is. But we know that the principal is $500 because $500 is what was invested in a savings account. And the rate we want to express as a decimal. So we're going to take the 3.25% and write it as a decimal. And then multiply it by the time in years. This particular problem is just a matter of taking those three numbers and multiplying them together. So 500 times the interest rate in decimal form times the time in years. And you will end up getting the interest is $48.75. What that means is after 3 years' time at that particular interest rate, that $500 will earn that much extra money. You may want to pause the video and try the next two on your own. Again, I suggest you write down the formula. So if we're looking to find the interest, we don't know what that is, but the principal is $400, and the rate as a decimal, we move it 2 places to the left. And then multiply it by the time in years, which in this case is 2. Multiply those together. And you get $29.36. Now this next one is a little bit trickier because of the time. See if you can see what the problem with the time is. Interest equals the principal times the rate times the time. We're trying to find the interest. The principal is $770 times the rate, which is 16%. Yikes, that's kind of like a credit card oftentimes can be. So that's the percent as a decimal. And then the time has to be the time in years. Well, 6 months is 6/12 of a year, since there's 12 months in a year. And 6/12 is 1/2. So you can either write 1/2, or another way to write 1/2 is like this. So 770 times 16 hundredths times 5/10 and you get $61.06 or 61 and 6 tenths, which since it's money, we're going to put the zero at the end, $61.60 in interest. In example 2, we're going to find the total amount. Well, to find the total amount, we have to first figure out the interest, and then the total is going to equal the principal plus the interest. So what is the total amount of money owed on a credit card with a balance of $1,500 at a simple interest rate of 22% after 1 month? Well, let's go ahead and first figure out the interest that's owed. Interest equals principal times rate times time. So the interest is going to equal $1,500 is the balance on the card. That's going to be your principal, or how much is owed, times the rate, 22%, another high percentage rate, rate as a decimal, and then the time, it's 1 month. 1 month is 1/12 of a year, so you can either use the fraction or the decimal form of 1/12. Well, actually the decimal form of 1/12 is a repeating decimal, so let's go ahead and just leave it as 1/12. Now the interest is going to equal, we're going to multiply these all together. That's going to equal $27.50. So that means the total amount, the total is going to equal the principal, which was $1,500, plus $27.50. So then the answer for the total is going to be $1,527.50. Choice B. You may want to pause the video and try the next one on your own. What is the total amount of money in dollars in an account where $95 is invested at a simple interest rate of 7.5% for 8 months? Well, once again, we're going to find the interest first. The interest is going to equal the principal, which $95 is the amount they're going to invest, at a rate of 7.5%. We need to put that in decimal form, so we're going to move it 2 places to the left. And then the time is in years. 8 months is 8 out of 12. 8 out of 12 is the same thing as 2/3 of a year. So we're going to take $95 times 0.075 times 2/3. And that means the interest earned is going to be $4.75. So now if I want to find the total in the account, it's not just going to be $4.75. The total is going to be the $95 that was put in there plus $4.75. So that's going to be choice J. At this point, you can either stop the video, or if you want to see a couple examples of the challenge questions, you would want to stay and watch these last 2. Jose's brother Luis makes monthly payments of $290.28 on a student loan of $5,000. He will pay off his loan in 1.5 years. Find the simple interest rate of his loan. So what we want to do here is start by writing down the formula. Interest equals principal times rate times time. So we know that the principal is $5,000. So I'm going to go ahead and put $5,000. We do not know the interest rate in this problem, so I'm going to leave that as R. And we know the time is 1.5 years. Now it doesn't straight out say what the interest is, but you can figure out the interest because it tells you he makes payments of that much money and he'll have it paid off in 1.5 years. So if you take $290.28 and multiply that by the 18 payments he's going to make, because 1.5 years is 18 months, so he's going to make 18 payments. That's going to be a total of $5,225.04. So if you take that total he's going to pay and subtract 5,000 from it, the amount he borrowed, that leaves $225.04 as the amount he would have to pay in interest. Now, if you want to solve this problem, you'd first want to simplify this side of the equation. You would want to use the commutative property and move those numbers around, and you would do the 5,000 times 1.5 first. 5,000 times 1.5 is $7,500 times the interest rate equals $225.04. Now to figure out the interest rate, instead of multiplying by 7,500, we're going to divide by 7,500. So $225.04 divided by 7,500. And we end up with R equaling about 0.03, and then there's a bunch of zeros and some more numbers. So if we now write that interest rate as a percent, that's going to be about 3%. Louis purchased a $200 savings bond. After 5 years, it's worth $232.50. Find the simple interest rate for his bond. Well, here's the formula. The bond was $200, so that's your principal. The rate we don't know, so we're going to leave that as R. And the time is 5 years. And the interest we can calculate. The interest is going to be $32.50. It's going to be $32.50 because he purchased it for $200 and now it's worth $232.50, which means he's earned $32.50 in interest. Now if we want to solve this equation, we're going to multiply the 200 times 5 first, which is 1,000. So 1,000 times R equals 3250. Now to get R by itself, we'd have to divide both sides by 1,000. $32.50 divided by 1,000 Now to write it as a percent, 3 and 25 hundredths percent.